What a great day! Hey, it's going to be a great day for chameleoning. You want to come along with me and let's just see what we do during a chameleon day. So yeah, being a chameleon wrangler is more than just hanging around and watching chameleons. You gotta make fruit fly cultures, you gotta take care of dubia roaches, you gotta take care of the plants, and there's just so much to do, and you don't want to do that unfueled up. And so you know what? It's time to get a little bit of that cold brew coffee and energize the system. To do this right, I think we're gonna go for the Chameleon cold brew here. Certified organic cold brew concentrate. Well, you know, that's exactly what I need today is to concentrate, and so this is perfect. Oh yeah, that'll do the job. All right, so I'm gonna get a little bit fueled up here, take a shower, and then I'm gonna introduce you to Antilles the Panther Chameleon. See you soon. And there he is up there. Isn't he gorgeous? With all those greens and blues and reds. And today we're going to be doing a hand feeding training. This is the kind of taming that I do. I don't do a lot of taming. I don't like to handle my chameleons. And the type of taming that I do is hand feeding. And to do this kind of training, you generally want to do a special treat. And so I am going to feed Antilles a green banana roach. All right, now you notice how good old Antilles up there is in some nice bright colors, but it's not necessarily as bright as you see in the pictures. Well, that is because Antilles is at rest and isn't very excitable at this moment. But what happens if we bring in another panther chameleon? Let's check it out. All right, now we're going to go ahead and leave Antilles. He's up there and he has successfully scared away the interloper. But the next thing I'd like to share with you is you see that tube up there on top of the cage in the middle? That is the fogging tube. And I've been working on a fogging project which has the fogger and the mister in the same reservoir. And I made some forward progress this week, and well, you know what? I gotta tell you the story. I was just sitting on the sofa doing my scroll. It was just a scrolling down a one-way street, just a looking. Whoa, now wait a minute. Hang on, look at that. Yes, my friend James Cross has already done it. And so why in the world would I reinvent the wheel? Decided, you know what? I gotta call James up and ask him about this. Hey, James! Hello! How you doing over there?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
All right. So I have been wanting to create this Mr. Fogger combo using the parts from the House of Hydro. And I wanted to do it in like a bucket because that's how I have all of my misters set up. And I'm thinking, why in the world do I have two reservoirs of water? Just use it for the fogger as well. And so I started getting pieces, and you know, this is my discs here. Of course, I've got a 5-disc system. I'm thinking that may be a little overkill, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm scrolling around and I see that you have something that looks exactly like what I'm trying to put together. I'm saying, wow, you know, why create something when somebody's already done that? And so, James, could you just share what is it that you're doing?
Well, I ended up with this. Most of my habitats are huge, and I ended up with a smaller habitat to put one of my panthers in because I'll be getting some new babies. And nothing would fit underneath it. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to make a bucket that is the reservoir and the fogger at the same time. Plus, it holds more water.
Yeah, perfect. All right. before we go into exactly how you did it, has there been any unexpected things that you have to deal with when you have both the fogger and the mister in one reservoir?
I haven't. I've got that all in my larger systems. I've done it now for over a year and a half, and they work flawlessly.
Now, just because I know these will be questions that people will ask, what happens when the water level gets low? We know the Mist Kings can run dry without a problem. What happens with the fogging elements when the water gets too low?
It seems to do the same thing. It'll just stop working, and you're not getting fog, so you need to fill your water.
Okay. All right.
I've run it dry more than one time, and it continues to work as soon as I fill it back up.
All right. That sounds perfect. All right, James. So are you able to lead us through the steps that you took to create this wonderful thing?
Sure. And all the parts are accessible at Home Depot.
Okay.
So I'm just going to try to put together a list of parts. There's not many, and it's really quite easy and goes quite fast.
Okay.
So
let's go ahead and take a look.
Okay, so right here's a section of the parts that you'll need. First thing, obviously, is a bucket. The first thing I do is put a 1/2-inch hole in the bottom for the Mist King bulkhead.
Okay, and you use a special drill bit to do that?
Actually, no, just a normal drill bit.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next thing I use is, this is a shower drain. It's actually, I use it in reverse. It already comes with a threaded fitting and a rubber gasket. So this is how I attach this to the top of it for where the fog comes out. And then you've got to reduce the size down. So I have an 1.5 reducer that reduces it down to 1.25 inches. And then on this, I have a threaded end on it.
Okay.
And on that threaded end, I'll use this spa tubing, which is also accessible at Home Depot. So the threads actually grab onto the spa tube, so you don't have to use any glue or anything.
Now, when you say spa tube, what is a spa? We usually do it with PVC pipe, but you've got a little tube. What is that?
It's spa tubing that they use for inside of interior tubs, or actually outdoor hot tubs. Okay. And they sell it in bulk at Home Depot.
And obviously, it's designed to work with water.
What's nice about it, too, is it's flexible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can bend it, twist it around corners, and whatever you have to get out from underneath your enclosure. So you screw that in there, slips into your fitting, and then I also have the same fitting with a coupler, so it's as smooth on one side and threaded on the other. And I will screw that into this end. And that gives you a chance to make what I call a sheep's foot. This will go up over the top of your cage, and the slip fitting will fit in the bottom.
Okay.
Then that way, you just hook it on the top, and to keep it in place, I just use an 1.25 inch electrical clamp, and I screw that to the top of the cage. It holds it in place.
Okay.
Okay. So here's how the bucket and lid system goes. I kind of did a little drawing for you.
Oh, nice.
Okay, you're going to need 2 holes. This can either be cut out with a hole saw, or you can use a razor knife. Okay, and the fan that I'm using is a 4-inch fan.
Okay.
And the other hole is for the drain connection. So you drill those out, you'll end up with this.
Very nice.
So let me bring it over here, show you how this drain works. So you unscrew the drain. It's a 2-piece part. You slip it through your 3-inch hole. Screw it on the top. No glue needed. Will be your exit port for your fog.
Okay.
Okay. Then the next thing I do, I take my fan, and it'll go in the larger hole, the 4-inch hole. And I use just some 1.25 threaded deck screws because they'll grab the plastic nice and easy. And then that way it's easy to remove too if you need to replace the fan, which sometimes you do. They'll last me about a year.
All right. And just a note, the fan is blowing into the pail
Exactly.
bucket.
The fan blows into the bucket. Okay. Those two parts. And then you'll take your bulkhead for your mist king. And I drilled that hole at a 1/2 inch because it keeps a tight fitting. The bulkhead will just barely fit through it. You have to use some pressure to get it started. And then it'll actually thread through the plastic also. And then you attach your filter to one side. And then your other end of tubing will go to your Mist King pump.
Okay.
At that point, you're pretty much done. That's how quick it is. I can build one of these in about 30 minutes.
All right. Now, how about the actual transducers?
I got a 1 head.
Okay.
All my other units have a 3. They seem to work fairly well. This works excellent for a 2x2x4.
All right.
So you take that guy. There's a little hole in the back, only on one side. And I like to stuff my cord through there because if the cord goes over the top of the disc, it will stop the flow of the fog coming out.
Okay.
And we put that guy in there, and you literally just drop it in the bucket, and then I run it up over the side. When I put the lid on, I've got some slots already put in the lid. So I make sure that cord. The other thing I'd really like to do too is make sure that the handle is facing towards the end that you're going to be pulling it out from. That way, when you're taking the bucket in and have to fill it up with water, you don't have any issues. And then, of course, I just run the cord right through the slot.
Okay. Nice. Now, how often will this is a 5-gallon bucket, correct?
Correct.
And
you only want to fill it up about 4.5 gallons, so you want to leave about a 1/2 gallon at the top.
Okay.
To allow room for the fog to build up.
Okay. So let's talk about what's going to be happening here. You've got water in there, about 4.5 gallons, and we need to leave area up top. And so when you turn on the transducer, the discs, they will create fog. The fan is blowing down, creating pressure into the bucket, which forces the fog up through our tube. How long does this? How long do you fog? How long do you mist? And how long does 4.5 gallons last?
So I start my fogging at 11 o'clock at night, and I run it until 4 o'clock in the morning. And within the first 15 minutes, I'm at 100% humidity.
Okay.
The misting system I have kick on once in the morning before lights on, and I'll have that run for about a minute just to wet everything down inside. Then I have it kick on again at 10 o'clock for 2 minutes to bring the humidity up again for the day. And then my mister will kick on again for another 2 minutes at the end of the day, just about an hour before lights off. That whole setup will, I don't have to fill it up but once a week. It's usually about 5 to 6 days.
And how hard is it to keep this system clean?
You know,
I haven't really had any issues with cleanliness because all my system is kept in the dark. When I've only cleaned them out. I only clean them out about every 6 months. I don't get any algae or dirt, and I think it's just superficial cleaning.
Okay.
I'll run some water and some vinegar through it, but I have not, because I use a sealed bucket, I don't get any debris or anything in there. So, and I'm not getting any sunlight creating algae. And the system's kind of, uh, enclosed, so it doesn't get any sunlight.
Okay. Sounds good. You know what? I am going to go ahead and build one right alongside you, and I'm going to go ahead and try it myself. Now, I'm thinking my 5-disc fog maker. This is going to be. I'm going to get a lot.
Yeah,
of
that's
fog
going to
out
be
of this
pretty
one.
powerful. I have a 3-disc and 47-gallon tub, and it does fine. So
Okay.
5-disc, boy, you're going to have some fog.
Yeah, maybe I ought to get myself a single disc and work up from there. But hey, what the heck? It's pretty easy just to switch them out.
And if you look at the cost, you can go ahead and buy one of those smaller units, and they're what, 75, $80. This whole system put together was about 60.
Okay, I think it's going to be a great thing for the community to learn how to put together foggers, because our fogging technology, the things that are available to us as foggers is just so primitive and basic that those of us who have serious setups, multiple cages, we need to learn how to build our own foggers. And so this is the whole point of this segment. So
I think so. I think this takes it to another level. Not only do you have a lot more water when it comes to time, a little more inexpensive, and you've got a double reservoir in one. And now you have extra room underneath whatever you're keeping it. To have storage underneath. Personally, I don't like to see wires and tubes and everything, so I try to hide all of that stuff. And that was really one of the driving factors of building this. That, along with a double system, where I didn't have to have 2 water storage containers.
Yeah, that was the main drive behind wanting to put it all together in a bucket. Is why have 2 reservoirs if you can do it in one? And I love it if somebody. Yes. So anyway, James, thank you very much. But maybe I should ask: is there anything when you've had this system running? Is there any surprises or anything that would be helpful for somebody just starting off to help them not run into the same problems?
Strangely enough, I've had 0 problems with this.
Perfect.
System. Just make sure all your connections are tight. Again, I didn't use any glue, and there's a reason for that. I'm able to disconnect the whole system without having to. There's not enough pressure to blow out any of the seams, so gluing it together, I think, would actually make it a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
With the way it's set up right now, you can take it apart very simply, and it seems to work just fantastically.
Perfect. James, thank you very much for coming on and showing what you did.
No problem, Bill. Thank you for your time.
So after that interview, I went out and started getting all of the material. I had a 5-disc, and that's going to be a little bit much for this size container. Originally, I had the idea I was going to do this on a much larger container, but then I decided a bucket is the perfect one because that's what I use for all of my misters. And so when I saw James use a bucket, I got very excited. So let's see. So I've got my 5-disc transducer from House of Hydro. I have single disc ones coming in, and they'll be here in a little while. On here, you can see I've got my bucket, my 5-gallon bucket. Here is that shower drain with the reducers, and this will screw into the hose. And we've got our 4-inch or 120 millimeter fan here. Now, the one thing, this is not going smoothly because when I got everything here, I realized that the top of my bucket lid has this ridge, and that's not gonna work. All right, I got to work on this fogger. Now, you may be saying, hey, wait a minute, that's not the same color shirt. I am sorry, I am disrupting the space-time continuum because after I did the interview with James, I got all my pieces together and I realized that my bucket lid had this big ridge that would get in the way of everything. And so I was saying, oh, I need to get new bucket lids. And then I said, wait a minute, why don't I just cut it out? And so that is what I did. And I just cut out the ridge, so it's not a problem anymore. So let's go ahead and turn this on and see what we got. First of all, I'm going to be putting in there a float. It's because these discs here require that they be a certain depth and not deeper than that. And so the float makes sure that they are at the right depth. All right, so we are going to attempt to get this going. And I'm just going to place this fan. It's got to blow inside. I'm not going to attach it just yet. But let's see. Does it work? All right, it's going. But let's see what happens when I turn on the transducers here. Let's make sure. All right, let's go. See what happens. Oh, my goodness. All right, so what happens if we then put this on here? Oh boy. No, that's too much. There we go. All right, it looks like we've got some fog going. Now it's just time for me to attach the tubing. I'll screw this fan on down and I'll put it on a cage. So James, thank you very much for coming on and showing how this was done. And I'm excited. I'm going to be making more of these. Now I'm going to go ahead and refine how I did it and kind of make a video of how I ended up implementing what James showed me, and just have it as a reference for the Chameleon Academy. So I'm pretty excited, and I love that I'm going to be having this in the same bucket as I have my Mister, and so it becomes a definite space savings. Okay, it is time that I go back to my time in the future and not continue to mess with the space-time continuum, and I'm going to give you back to the bill of your present. We're going to explore different ways of getting the fog out. I am using this tubing that James used because I thought it was a great idea. This is a little bit of expensive, but it was, let's see, for me it was around $6 a foot. But the thing is that, let's see, once you have it in here, you have it flexible, and then you attach this to your PVC network, however you're gonna send your fog around. The thing is, when you put your PVC directly into the bucket, which is what is more often done, the bucket is stationary. You can't move the bucket with relation to the PVC. So this gives you a little bit more freedom. Certainly not necessary, but I like the idea enough that I am going to put that on mine. And so I didn't plan on this being a two-part episode, but it turns out I'm gonna have to make it a two-part episode because I still need to get some things in, but I didn't want to delay giving you the information directly from James. So next Chameleon Hour, I'm going to be having my fogger together, and I'll show you how I do it step by step. Now, I wanted to bring in a clip that I did in Madagascar when I found the Furcifer ustaleti, the Madagascar Giant Chameleon, and we found this guy crawling across a road, and there was no trees around. I mean, there's trees in the distance, but this guy had obviously run around a bunch of farmland, and apparently it wasn't bothering him. But I wanted to go ahead and show you this clip, and so let's go ahead and roll it. Hello, Chameleon Academy. I want to introduce you to Furcifer ustaleti, the Madagascar Giant Chameleon. And this was quite the impressive chameleon. This is an adult male. You can tell by the high casque. You can tell by the hemipenes. And where did we find them? In what would appear at first glance to be the most unlikely chameleon habitat. Look at this. Not a whole lot here. And we found him crossing this road. This road is 133 degrees, and out here we're at 94 degrees, and so they are definitely adapted to this hot temperature. That said, don't keep them that inside of a cage. Out here they have shade that they can get into, even though you don't see a whole lot of trees, there is still shade that they can get into and cover. Now, as far as the pet potential, they have been available even through the couple decades of Madagascar's being shut down, but they tend to be overshadowed because they're next to the Panther Chameleon, and those colors are kind of hard to compete with. But these guys are wonderful chameleons to keep. They have great personalities, and the people who have kept Ustaletii just fall in love with them. Lots of patterns and subtle colors. As always, it is best to get a captive hatch individual, leave the wild caught to the breeders, and luckily there are some breeders that are working with this incredible species. And so this is a great find. Very happy that we were able to find one, and incredible that we found him crossing the road. All right, see you next time. All right, I hope you enjoyed that clip of the first Ustaletii I found in Madagascar. What an amazing trip it was. And there's so many great memories, and yeah, I want to go back. And you know what? We're gonna have to see what I can arrange, because there are so many more things that I want answered that are best answered in Madagascar. While that clip was running, I heard the doorbell. My dogs let me know that there was somebody there, and so I am betting I have a package, and I'm very excited for this package, and so come along with me and we're gonna go see what I got. All right, here we go. Let us see what I got today. It is an Enjoy Pothos. Look at that gorgeous creature. Oh my goodness. This, of course, is from Elizabeth from Propagated Perfection, who I had on the Chameleon show, the last Chameleon show, and I ordered an Enjoy Pothos from her. And oh my goodness, this is such a nice specimen, and that's really why I wanted to have her on the show, is because she can go and she can handpick these things for us and send them to our door. And so I am ecstatic with this find. All right, for now, I am going to put it back here. It's going to be part of my backdrop until I put the cage together that this is going to go with. And of course, I'm going to bring you along as I make the cage. But for right now, I'm collecting the plants because, you know, when you want to find these big, beautiful plants, you can't just snap your fingers and go down to Home Depot. And so I pre-ordered. Very happy I did. And I've got a couple of other special things coming in. And you would be correct if you suspected that I was going to share those unboxings with you, because this is kind of fun. So let's see, we'll put this back here as a background for my studio. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got back there. There's my Enjoy, and it's sitting right next to my Pothos cage, which has 5 different varieties of Pothos. And you know what? There's a good reason that we in the chameleon community love our Pothos. And so, you know what? I want to take a closer look at the Pothos plant, what it is, how we use it, and I think it's appropriate to bring Elizabeth back so we have an expert to talk to us about Pothos. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Elizabeth, one of our favorite plants is something that we call Pothos. But let's see, the official name is Epiprenum Arium. Epiprenum Arium.
Yes, there you go.
And that's why we keep calling it Pothos. We love Pothos because it gives us that big leaf area for chameleons to hide behind and drink water off of, and then it just trails down, and so it creates this wall of leaves, and so it's just such a wonderful plant for us. But let's go ahead and get to know it a whole lot better.
Totally.
Just let's start off with, what can you tell us about this pothos in the wild? Where does it come from?
I would say it's a tropical plant. You're going to find it in areas that are a lot, have more of a tree covering because if they get too much sunlight, they'll burn. But they are very common in like southeastern Asia. There are some other places where they will grow, but definitely southeastern Asia.
What does it look like in the wild? I mean, when I look in it, apparently it can get to 60 feet long.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
they
pretty
are
impressive.
massive.
And I also hear that they're flowering. We can get a flower on them.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. There's different kinds. So you can have like a large leaf pothos, you can have your regular ones that don't get as big, but they, instead of what you normally see here where they're trailing down and almost like this fun waterfall effect in nature, they basically grow along the ground and attach to trees and grow up the trees. So it's almost like nature's own moss pole is the best way to explain it. So yeah. So as the leaves grow up the tree, you're going to see them get bigger and bigger because they're getting so much more, they're maturing. So you're going to get these massive leaves. I've seen some where the leaves are like bigger than my head. It's crazy. They're really cool. They're getting more sunlight. They're just, as they mature, like I said, they're going to get larger leaves and just keep growing. I personally haven't seen any that flower, but I have seen pictures and it's so cool. It happens more often in places, where they grow naturally, where they're getting all of that stuff that they're used to, but it is pretty cool. And there's so many different types of pothos specifically that, they all kind of grow the same, I would say for the most part, but yeah, you can get those really massive leaves, especially if you start having, teaching it to grow up too. So.
Well, okay. So how come we don't see that so much in captivity? And the follow-up question is, how do we get them to do that?
We don't see them as much, in captivity here, one, because they're kind of taken out of their original environment, which is not a bad thing, but they're not getting what they were, born with, or however you want to explain it. If you really want to get those leaves to get big, I suggest instead of, just kind of letting it trail and do whatever, put it up on a moss pole. If you do that, you're going to start seeing the leaves get bigger as they mature. You might not get the leaves as big as your face, but maybe half the size. You'll get some pretty big leaves going just because that the way that it's growing, you're basically promoting it to grow the way it grows on nature, growing up those trees. And alongside, I've seen some grow on like telephone poles in other countries. But they do the same thing. They get huge. So I would say that's the best way to do it there. Give it lots of humidity. They like humidity, especially in those tropical environments. They're going to be getting a bunch of humidity that we don't have as much, here being in California. It's a little drier. So I would say the same thing in the US. If you're in Florida, I will say you will have some good humidity and some good luck with those growing too. Anywhere else, we might need to add a little bit more humidity.
Let's talk about what is the ideal conditions for the pothos in captivity.
Yeah, great question. So let's say we take it home. You're going to want to water it about once a week, I would say. Again, depending on the environment, might not need as much water, might need a little bit more. You're also going to want to make sure it has humidity, like you said. So it's perfect for where you guys keep your chameleons, because the chameleons need humidity and so do the plants. So it's a perfect match. So that humidity is awesome. That's going to help it grow. And they do like a decent amount of sunlight. So if you have, there's different kinds of pothos, like I said. So you're going to have like a golden pothos, jade pothos. Pothos enjoy lots of different colors. If you get one that has some lighter colors on it, some variegation, those are going to want a little bit more sunlight than the darker leafed ones. Because if you want to hold that variegation, you need some sunlight. You need that going on for that to happen. So I would say medium to bright indirect light going, some humidity, and good watering is the best way to have those growing well in your cages.
Now we touched on varieties. There's so many different kind of varieties. What are these varieties? Are they actual different species, or are they just color morphs? What are these varieties?
Depends on the plant. There are some that they've like breeded together to get certain, coloring on them, or there's like different mutations. So a lot of the times when you get like the one behind you, your marble queen, so it's gonna
Mhm.
have more white on it, and like a snow queen is gonna have, it's almost gonna be completely white leaves. That's just a mutation that people have then taken, and they're like, take this one cool plant that has this mutation and basically have, we can get into the sciencey thing of it, tissue culture. You take little tiny pieces of the plant, put it in a petri dish, all this fun stuff, and they just continue to make them grow and get multiples of this, like one or two types of plants that have mutated in nature. So it kind of just depends on the plant, but like you said, there's the different kinds. From what I've seen, there's certain places that they grow differently. Like you're going to have a lot more of the regular large leaf golden pothos and stuff like that in the Southeast Asia area.
And so are all these different varieties just within, say, captivity, within the trade that we've developed them, or do these actually occur in nature?
So it's a little bit of both. They do occur in nature too. Like the one behind you, I think you have a marble queen behind you. They do grow in nature as well. It is just kind of from a different, mutation of like a golden or a jade pothos. Just for whatever reason, when it started to grow, it kind of just decided to have a lot of white in the leaves, and then you get multiples of those, as some leaves fall off, end up getting propagated into the ground next to this plant. So you have a bit of both. There's others where they are more man-made. You can take them into a lab, get some leaves to be even whiter, which is like kind of where you get a snow queen, which is almost completely white leaves with a little bit of green. But yeah, they're definitely occurring in both nature and can be, created in a lab.
Between all these different varieties, do we take care of them differently?
For the most part, when it comes to watering, no. When it comes to the different varieties and the coloring on them, that's the best way for me to explain it, is if it has a lot more white on the leaves or has any sort of variegation, like for example, a jade pothos is just going to be solid green leaves. They don't need as much sunlight as one that has white on it, which would be like a pothos and joy, or even your one behind you, your marble queen. Those are going to want more light to be able to hold that variegation. If they don't get as much light, you're going to get more solid leaves that almost turn into what like a jade pothos is. So if you want to hold that variegation, give it a little bit more light than your regular pothos are getting.
We find a pothos we like, we bring it home. What kind of soil would be ideal for us to repot it into?
You want to look for something that is well draining. Most of the time, things that are well draining are going to have a lot of lava rocks, charcoal, perlite, even some orchid bark. Orchid bark is my best friend because it holds water and is able to disperse it more evenly throughout the soil. So if you don't have a soil that is specifically containing all of those things, you can always buy those separately, add it to your mix. I mix my own soil, and I mean, I have it. If anybody ever needs soil, I can send you bags, but I mix it. And that's definitely what's helpful, is looking for a chunkier soil mix, is the best way to put it. That keyword chunky. If you get something that's just peat moss and dirt, just basically those two things, you're not going to have a lot of drainage. It's probably not going to soak in as much water as you'd want, or that water is going to finally soak in and then just not really be able to go anywhere.
And then maintenance, how do we feed this thing? What kind of fertilizer should we use and how often?
Depending on the chameleon, I would look this up specifically, but you can technically I've used a bit of the Miracle Grow liquid plant food. I normally try to avoid the bigger name stuff, but I have seen the Miracle Grow liquid plant food work well for my plant. Super easy. It's in like a little pump bottle. The bottle says you can fertilize like once every 2 weeks. I honestly go once a month if I really want the plant to grow a lot, or if it's one of my bigger plants like this guy behind me. Sometimes I'll fertilize it once a week. There isn't really a way of overdoing it unless you're doing it daily. That can actually like kind of end up harming the plant because it's just it's too much for it to handle. So I would say on average, I do about once every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what you kind of want. If the plant's smaller starting off, maybe give it a little bit more, maybe try out once a week. But with that fertilizer, you can just squirt it into like a gallon of water and then use it to water your plants, and that's it. But if you wanted to go a more organic route, which is what I'd prefer, there's like basically stuff that's fish poop is the best way to explain it. It's not just straight up fish poop. They've like done all the things that they've needed for it to be a clean clean process. They sell it. You can Google it. There's, I guess, like Fish Farms is a good place to look. It's called organic soil conditioner, and that's what I use now on my plants and on my propagations. Just pour it into a little bit of water. I have it in basically it's a clone machine. This thing back here, it's just a massive propagation machine. I poured it in there with some water, and it just really helps promote root growth. And I've seen that actually work better. That organic fish stuff is what I would be looking for when it comes to fertilizer, not anything with too many chemicals in it.
Propagation, if we want to, one of the joys of Pothos is how easy it is to propagate. What's the best way to propagate Pothos?
Luckily, they are amazing and will propagate and grow roots very quickly. I, of course, don't have one right next to me at the moment, but I can kind of show you what the cousin would look like of a Pothos, philodendrons. Basically, what you're going to do is you'll have them start to grow roots like this pretty quickly. It's super easy. It's great. All you have to do is, like if you wanted to trim this down, you're going to look for a node, which might be a little hard to see here, but it's this little tiny brown bump right there on the leaf. And the more nodes you can get close together, the better. What you're going to do is you're going to trim right below this node here. You're going to trim right below this node here. I would give it about 1/2 inch to 1 inch because you're going to have this portion along with the node sticking out in the water. You don't want it to be too short because then it's just going to float to the top of your propagation stand. Going to cut this. This already has a lot of the roots growing out of there, but looking for those little tiny brown bumps on the stem is the best way to do it. If you don't have one of those brown bumps on the stem that you end up cutting, it's not going to grow. It doesn't have anywhere to grow roots. Then you put it in some water. I just have it in these little tubes. This one doesn't have a lot of water in it right now, but I just get it in these little glass tubes, or you can put them in a cup with water, and you're going to put all of your propagations together. And this, I would say, has only been in there for I think it's been 2 to 3 weeks, but you're going to get a bunch of roots starting to grow. And then these little offshoots here are water roots. So that's when you know that you can technically repot it when it's already like this, but especially when you start getting these little tiny water roots, that's a perfect time to actually put it in some soil.
All right. So the important thing is when we are putting it in water is that those little brown nodes are hitting the water.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If they're not hitting the water, it's not going to grow, and it'll probably just end up drying out and dying, because that's the only way that the plant can actually soak in the water.
And what kind of light and humidity should we provide this cutting?
With Pothos, the nice thing is they don't need a lot, especially when it's propagations. Okay. So I technically right now just have it in my room that's in here. This room gets a little warmer, which is nice. I obviously have the vent and stuff closed because I don't want anything to hit it or be too drastic of a temperature change, but they don't need a whole lot. You can, if you have quite a few propagations together, it does help if you put a humidifier or something next to your propagations. It does just help the leaves continue to stay healthy. So that, and then I would say that same thing with the lighting, medium to bright indirect light, which basically just means anywhere from 6 to 10 hours of sunlight during the day is perfect. Even if it's getting a little bit more than that, that's fine. You just don't want it to be next to a window where it's a east facing window and the sun's just burning the plant all day. So keeping it at least 2 feet away from a window is perfect.
Now, can I take one of those cuttings that have those brown nodes and stick them into soil?
You can. You definitely can. It depends on the person, but I've had better luck propagating through water And I just like being able to watch the roots grow. It's kind
Okay.
of fun. You
Uh-huh.
technically can do that, but I will say if you were to do that, if you were to take just a few leaves, like let's say you were to take 2 to 5 leaves, you're not going to want to put it in a big, huge pot. Like you're not going to want to put it in this 8-inch size pot because then it's almost like it's overwhelmed by soil. It needs a smaller place to start growing those roots. You kind of want to keep it contained. So like if you were to take a clump of this many cuttings, you're going to want to have it in like a 2-inch sized pot or even a 3-inch, which is like I said, basically it's going to be like this big to this big. If you have it in anything too bigger, there's more of a likelihood for it to get root rot because you've poured water into it. It's just sitting in all this soil, or it's going to get dried out quicker because there's so much soil and not enough plant to suck up all the water, or it's just not going to get the water.
So what is our sign that it is time to move it over?
Technically, with the pothos, you can't really keep it in water too long.
Okay.
I've seen people who have had pothos in their water for years, and the plant is
Okay.
massive and healthy and great. They just kind of have to, just like what you would do with the pot. Once the roots start getting too big for that container, you move it to a new pot. So that's just the best way to look at it. But I would say let your roots, like this is definitely, it could be repotted. Let your roots get like 2 to 3 inches long
Okay.
before you repot. If you have anything shorter, like even if it's only an inch long, there's there's less of a likelihood that the plant is going to do well. It might be fine, but if you really want to have the best luck with it, let those roots get to at least 2 to 3 inches long. I normally wait till mine are like 3 or 4 inches long just to play it safe. And then especially once you start getting these extra little offshoots that come from the bigger stem, or I'm sorry, the bigger roots, like these little guys, that's definitely, you can repot it because it's doing well and it has extra places to be sucking up water and nutrients.
There are a lot of different varieties of pothos.
Mm-hmm.
Are
Oh.
any of them any harder to find than others?
If you want something that's a little more rare, we'll say, you're probably going to want to find specific sellers on like, I mean, I have stuff like that where you're going to want to look on Etsy or even Google. But it can get to a point where those are like hundreds of dollars and it can be a little overwhelming. Some people will sell cuttings, but they can still be pricey. But it really just depends on the plant. Like for example, your like a golden pothos, which is just your basic pothos that most of you have probably seen with the green, with the yellow. Those are a lot more common than like what you have behind you, which is the marble queen, the one that has the variegation in it. It has more of the white. Those are they're going to most likely be a different price. The marble queen is a little less common. It's a little harder to come by, so you are going to find that to be a little bit more than your typical golden pothos. It's almost like the more variegation there is on a leaf, the more expensive it
Mm-hmm.
gets, is the
Okay.
best way to put it.
If we come to you and say, "Hey, we want a hero plant," and just say we just need something, you most likely would be able to find a golden pothos for us.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
There's quite a few different ones I could like I for sure would be able to get you golden pothos, green jade or jade pothos, marble queen, snow queen, pothos and joy. Most of the ones that are at least somewhat common and have become a lot more popular here in the US, I can totally get. So yeah, and I normally get some really big ones. So I would
Okay.
definitely I would definitely be able to help with that.
Well, you just listed off some of the best varieties. What varieties would be rare?
It's called a epipinatum marble. It's nothing super fancy. It's just something that's not as common here in the US yet.
Okay.
A lot of people are getting them. They have to get them imported from like Indonesia or Thailand. That's where some of my plants end up coming from, is imports from out of the country because you just don't see them here. So that's one that's going to be more rare. The best way to explain it is you get like it almost has those Monstera type leaves at times where you
Oh,
kind of get
okay.
the holes in them, but the
Yeah.
leaves are
Okay.
like super white. Like think of your marble queen, but white and like super dark green. So that's kind of what it is. But they hopefully, I mean, there's times where the hype will die down and you'll be able to get one for for a lot cheaper. Just depends on, you got to go based on what people are in love with and are having a hard time getting right now. So that would be one of the
Okay.
more rare ones.
So is there any time of year where it would be more difficult to find say a large pothos?
I would say obviously it's going to grow a lot quicker in spring and summertime. If you're looking for something in like winter, you'll still find some large pothos, but it's not going to be as common because they're not growing as quickly. They don't have the same growing conditions that they do when it's summer, when it's warm and there's a little bit more humidity, and that sunlight is just really, really helping the plants out. Whereas in winter, they're just not going to grow as quick. So I would say spring and summertime are the best times to get the big guys.
How long does it take to grow up to what we're calling a big guy?
Again, it just depends on how much you're going to baby the plant too. If you really take good care of it, you can get a lot of growth. For example, my mom has had 2 in her house for, I want to say I got them for her like 3 years ago. When I first got them for her, it was probably about 4 or 5 feet long. And now I want to say they're about like 15 feet long. So you can get quite a bit of growth in a short amount of time. Like my other pothos, I would say I get about, you can get up to like 2 new leaves a week, sometimes 3. But yeah, they are quick growers, especially in summer and spring. But if you fertilize them, give them the good stuff during winter, they'll be okay.
All right, Elizabeth, is there anything else you'd like to share about pothos?
I think that it's a good starter plant, especially if you're just getting into the realm of the plant world. It's a great plant to start with. It's also a great plant even if you're experienced, because there's so much, so many different varieties that you can add into your chameleon cages or your home and just have a good time with it. But they're generally a great, easy plant that looks beautiful and grows big. So it's a good choice for your first one.
Excellent. Yeah, and we chameleon people continue to love them very much.
Yep.
Oh, all right, Elizabeth, thank you very much for coming on and introducing us to the pothos.
Of course.
We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye. Hello, Bill of the Future is back to say thank you very much for spending this time with me. Had a great time meeting Antilles, going through the Chameleon cold brew, learning about First Ustaleti, and doing a fogger. Oh yeah, and then all of the pothos stuff. And so, wow, we've had quite a day today. Thank you very much for joining me here. This is Bill Strand signing off, and I'll see you next time.